Mamihlapinatapai. You're standing in a doorway at the end of the night, and so is someone else. The conversation has already found its natural end. You've both said goodnight once, neither of you has moved. There's a thing you want to say or do hanging in the few inches of air between you. And you can see plainly that they're waiting for the exact same thing. Two people, both wanting the other to go first, both frozen by the same small fear. There's a word for that paralysis, and it's often called the hardest word in the world to translate, Mamihlapinatapai. It comes from Yūgen, a nearly vanished language from the cold tip of South America. It means a look shared by two people, each hoping the other will begin something both of them want and neither dares to start. The reason it traps you is a quiet standoff inside your head. To act, you have to predict how the other person will react. And the cost of guessing wrong, of reaching out and being left hanging, feels enormous. So it's easier in the moment to risk nothing and call it politeness. So you wait for proof. They wait for proof. And the moment, which needed only one person to be brave, slowly closes on its own. Almost everyone can name a doorway like that from their own life. The thing that was never said still lives in the space where you both stood waiting. Iktsuarpok. A friend texts that they're 20 minutes away, and something in you switches on. You wipe a counter that's already clean. You walk to the window, look down the street, see nothing, walk away. 2 minutes later, you're back at the window, as if the street might have changed its mind. You can't settle, can't start anything, can't read a page without checking the time. You put the kettle on just so the kitchen has something to do. The Inuit have a word for this exact restlessness. Iktsuarpok. The feeling of anticipation that keeps pulling you up to look outside for someone who hasn't arrived yet. It comes from a culture where a visitor crossing the snow could mean news, food, the end of long isolation. And there's a real engine behind the fidgeting. The part of your brain that handles reward doesn't light up most when the good thing arrives. It lights up while you're waiting for it. That anticipation is its own chemical state, and it makes you orient again and again toward the door. You're not being impatient. Your nervous system is rehearsing the arrival before it happens, and every empty look down the street is your brain practicing the joy in advance. L'appel du vide. There's a thin metal railing between you and a very long drop. A bridge, a balcony, the edge of a cliff with the wind coming up the face of it. Your hand tightens on the rail without being told to. You are not sad. You do not want to die. And yet, for one clean, horrifying second, a thought arrives uninvited. What if I jumped? Then it's gone, and you step back from the edge a little shaken by your own mind. The French call this l'appel du vide, the call of the void. Researchers have a plainer name for it, the high place phenomenon, and the most convincing explanation turns the scary version on its head. When you near an edge, your brain fires a fast, wordless safety alarm and pulls you back before you've consciously processed anything. That jolt happens so quickly that the thinking part of you arrives late, feels the fear, and scrambles for a reason. The only story that fits the panic is, I must have wanted to jump. But you didn't. Studies have actually linked feeling the call of the void to a stronger attachment to life, not a weaker one. The urge was never toward the drop. It was your body yanking you back toward living. Mono no aware. The cherry tree in the yard holds its blossoms for maybe a week. You catch it on a still morning, every branch heavy with pink, the light coming through. And the feeling that rises isn't simple happiness. It's happiness with a thread of grief sewn through it. Because the very thing that makes it beautiful is that in a few days the petals will be on the ground, brown at the edges. In Japanese, this is mono no aware, a gentle, aching awareness of the impermanence of things, and a tenderness toward them precisely because they don't last. The phrase was shaped centuries ago by a scholar describing why fleeting things move us so deeply. And it points at something your mind does automatically. Permanence makes you stop noticing. The wall has always been there, so you never see it. But a thing with an expiry date snaps into focus. Knowing it will end is what lets you finally see it clearly. That's why the last day of a holiday glows brighter than the first. why a child's small shoes can stop a parent in the hallway, why you photograph a sunset knowing the photo will never hold what you're standing in. The sadness isn't a flaw in the beauty. It's the part that makes you pay attention. Torschlusspanik. It's your birthday, and the number is bigger than you're quite ready for. You're at dinner, candles, people you love around the table. Someone is filming it on a phone, and you smile half a second too late. And underneath the warmth, a cold little voice starts doing math. By now, you were supposed to have done more, built more, become more. Doors you assumed would stay open forever suddenly look like they're swinging shut. Germans name this Torschlusspanik, gate-closing panic. The phrase is literal. In the Middle Ages, town gates shut at nightfall, and stragglers outside raced to get in before they were locked out till morning. Now the gates are invisible, but the panic is the same, and it runs on a known quirk of the mind. When you sense your time or your options shrinking, your brain stops weighing things calmly and starts treating every closing door as a loss. Loss looms larger than gain, so the fear gets loud. You start saying yes to things just to prove a gate is still open. The trap is that panic narrows you, makes you grab at the nearest door just because it's still open. But most of those gates were never on a timer at all. They felt like they were closing only because for one evening you were counting. Yūgen. It's late and you're watching someone you love sleep. Their breathing is slow and even. One of their hands is curled near their face the way it always is. You find yourself memorizing the small sounds of the room, the clock, the radiator, their breath. And as you lie there in the dark, an enormous, almost unbearable thought arrives. You hope with your whole chest that you are the one who goes first. Not out of fear of death, out of the simple inability to imagine a single ordinary morning in a world that no longer has them in it. In Arabic, there is a word for that exact love, Yūgen. It translates roughly to "you bury me," a wish to die before the other person, because living on without them is the harder fate. It sounds morbid until you feel the shape of it. It isn't about death at all, it's a way of measuring how deep someone has gone into your life. The bond between two people who've spent years together rewires them until the other is woven into the daily machinery of being you. Yūgen is just that arithmetic spoken out loud, a love so complete that you would rather carry the grief yourself than hand it to them. Sobremesa. The plates are empty, the food is gone, and nobody has moved. The afternoon light has shifted across the table while you weren't watching. Someone refills the coffee again. A story leads to another story. There's no plan, nowhere anyone needs to be, just the warm gravity of the table holding everyone in their chairs. A child slips under the table and nobody stops them. Spanish has a name for this lingering sobremesa, literally over the table. The stretch of time after a meal when the eating is done, but the company isn't. It isn't an afterthought in the cultures that name it. It's the actual point of the meal. And there's a quiet biology under it. Sharing food lowers people's guard, and unhurried time together releases the chemistry that deepens a bond. The table becomes a small, safe room where the usual rush has no authority. We've mostly engineered this out of our days, eating fast, standing up, already reaching for the next thing. But you've felt it on the rare afternoon it happens. That reluctance to be the first one to stand, because standing up ends something good. Saudade. Looking for something else entirely, you open a drawer and your hand finds an old recipe card. The handwriting on it stops you cold. Those loops and slants belong to someone who is gone now. Suddenly you can smell their kitchen. You can hear the specific way they said your name. You can see them at the stove, sleeves pushed up, not measuring anything. It isn't grief exactly, and it isn't happiness. It's both, fused so tightly you can't pull them apart. In Portuguese, this is saudade. The word likely traces back to the Latin for solitude, and it became the soul of an entire culture. It's sung in fado, the music of a seafaring nation whose people spent years at sea, loving those they might never reach again. What makes Saudade so precise is that the longing and the tenderness aren't at war. They are the same feeling, wearing one face. Your memory doesn't store the good moment and the loss of it in separate places. It keeps them folded together so when one surfaces, the other comes with it. You miss it this much because it was exactly that good. The ache isn't the opposite of the love. The ache is the proof you kept. Yūgen. You climb to the rim of a valley just as the last light is going. Below you, the land falls away further than you can take in, ridge behind ridge, fading into blue. A few early stars are out. Somewhere far below, the lights of a single farmhouse come on. The wind moves through something vast and very old, and you go quiet without deciding to. For a moment, you feel both unbearably small and strangely part of all of it at once. The Japanese word for that is Yūgen, a profound, mysterious sense of the depth of the universe, too large and too deep to ever say out loud. It isn't fear and it isn't simple beauty. It's the feeling at the edge of what a person can hold, the kind of quiet that makes you lower your voice, though no one is near enough to hear. And something measurable happens to you in that moment. When you take in something genuinely vast, the chattering, self-focused part of your mind quiets down. Your sense of your own importance shrinks, and the room left behind fills with a kind of awe. Even your sense of time loosens, as if the moment is wider than other moments. This is the feeling people chase up mountains and into cathedrals and out to the dark edge of the sea. You don't reach for your phone because there's nothing here a photo could hold. Not to feel big. To finally, for a few breaths, stop being the center of everything. If one of these finally put a word to something you've carried for years, tell me which one found you, and leave the feeling you've still never been able to name. There's a good chance it already has a name in some language, and it might be the first one in the next one.